see, I'm playing viola, and you have questions about proper left hand and right hand setup for your viola. So, let's dive into it. First, starting out our instruments. The basic concept to know that you are going to have a nice, relaxed, and manipulatable hand position for playing your instrument is to understand just the basic concepts of how our bodies are going to be held, the position that they would be in naturally with our hands. So if we think about our hands at the side, mine are a little low for you to see, but just how their fingers are curved, the thumbs are curved slightly and to the side a little bit. And again, to show you the balance in the knuckles, you can see especially well on this side for me. So these principles will be applied across both sides. So let's go into the right hand first. The basic setup for a good right hand is to apply this concept of a bunny, here's the mouth, here's the ears, which is going to be laying and eating the frog, and the ears falling down, flopping down like a bunny over the frog. So let's do this slowly. We come in from an angle directly onto the frog. The thumb, the teeth kind of poke in and bite right here at the top of the frog, not in here, right on top of the frog where the leather is. Come in at this kind of side angle. The tooth kind of bites on there. Again, watch from the side. Then the teeth clamp down on top over the frog, right? This hole is the frog. And then the ears flop down so that they're just on top of the wood. This ear is a little bit more pointy and pokey. This one's a little bit more floppy. But you see, there's balance in the knuckles, and all of the fingers are curved, including the thumb curved outwards, not inwards, under the frog, right? So this is a good basic bow hand setup. So for the left hand, this one is even more simple because, again, it's just arm down, lift arm up, and then there's a little bit of a internal rotation, I believe that's called pronation, and maybe your elbow can kind of twist and have some flexibility. But the fingers still stay very balanced and just curve in like this. That's the only difference. So we can do this where you can practice holding your instrument up, have your arm down, support it with your other arm, lift up, and then you can you just need to move your elbow in, open up in your arm, internally rotate with these, with your forearm, and then your knuckles will end up nicely in parallel with the fingerboard. So again, the concepts we were talking about: balanced knuckles, curved fingers, and just overall pretty natural, relaxed shape of our natural hand position, but manipulated in a way that that is suitable to fitting the instrument, right? So those are the basic concepts. Now we're going to go into 6 potential and issues that you might be having that is very common for all players, probably at any level, but especially when learning. And the first is on your left side. Let's work on the left side ones. So a very common one is for the left wrist. It's kind of, people don't know, I'm trying to put my fingers down, and then your elbow goes over the place, the wrist really bends out because you're really trying to get your fingers down onto the fingerboard. And obviously this constricts the wrist and the movement of our arm, so it's not a natural position, right? So the basic solution for this is just to feel that, making sure that you know this tendon at the front of your wrist is not being constricted, but it will be relaxed, and you'll feel a release if you're going from here and you straighten it out. You'll feel the release of that tendon. And kind of what might come with that is just Again, we were talking about the position of the elbow being under the viola. If anything, almost like, you can see it's kind of almost in front of the viola at this point from the position I have. And that will help make sure that the elbow is at a good angle to facilitate having a straighter wrist to get into a nice position for these curved fingers. Right? Okay. So another issue that you might have with your left hand is, even if you have this good position, you might be squeezing your thumb into the neck of your instrument. And this again is going to be constricting your wrist going back, but it's also constricting all your other fingers, and if you want to do more advanced things like vibrato, like, it's not going to happen. There's no flexibility in those fingers. So the best thing that you can do to just make sure that you're not tensing up that is you can try tapping your thumb and thinking about the support that you get in holding your instrument from your bicep rather than from your hand or something, and making sure that you're holding the instrument up nice and high so that most of the support of the instrument is actually coming from here, this lower part of the instrument. And the fingers can feel relatively relaxed. And then going back to our analogies with cute animals, imagine that you can imagine that you have a baby chick held in your hand and you're trying to play the instrument and not squeeze them in there in this tiny holes. These are hard to see in demonstrations, but baby chick, don't squeeze it. Don't go like this. Keep a nice round hand for that baby chick to be in there. All right? Okay, and then the last thing that is, I kind of demonstrated in the left wrist because this is a common collaboration in errors of technique, is straight fingers to try to push down the strings, trying to reach as far as you can, especially for those lower strings with like very straight, and then in this case maybe flat contact with the string and the fingers kind of flattening out and collapsing down. So we want, again, curved fingers, so that means that the contact with the string will come on the tip of the finger, slightly in, just below the fingernail, which again, we didn't talk about, but you'll need to have short fingernails so that you have a nice fleshy area on your fingers to push down the string. So to make sure that you have nice curved fingers and that you're not flattening, just make sure that you understand how these fingers can move from all together or independently, just from these base knuckles that we were talking about. And that one exercise that I like to do is just seeing if you can hop from the low strings to the high strings and see how that distance can be traversed just by moving from the base knuckles. Maybe a little bit of rotation difference happening in my arm, but you can try to do it as much without it just to see and isolate this feeling. All right. And one final thing that you can think about is just like the reason for this is if you had flat fingers, then the lower strings that you go onto, like if I was on the C string, I had flat fingers. I'm also pushing down notes on the G string, which in many cases, what if I needed to play a note on the C string and play open G at the same time? I couldn't do that if my finger's flat. I'd be playing that same finger on the string above out of tune. So we need to make sure that we can make bridges naturally with our left hand position so that we can always be playing open strings without our left hand interrupting the pitch on those upper strings. So it's a bridge. It's like going over whatever rivers these other strings might be that you need to be over. It's a bridge over the string. Great. Okay. Now our final three are more related to the bow. So whenever we're bowing, the basic problem that many beginner students might have is something like this, which by this point I'm sure you know, you can identify not curved fingers, right? And then this is what Nancy calls bow hold looks like Kermit the Frog. So what's different about this from what I demonstrated as a good bow hold is, okay, for one, there's tension, lock in the wrist, which we already talked about on this side, right? This is going to lock things up. But this is also kind of causing and also being caused by the fingers being straight, especially the thumb, right? So you can initially solve half of this problem just by making sure that your thumb is curved downward. So if you flipped your bow upside down, you would see a little mountain of your thumb just poking out a little bit. over the bow hair. And making sure that, and then to get this position all the way to where, so it was like this, curve the thumb can kind of fix it. This can cause some tension. Also just making sure that your elbow's not too far down, but it's in line with your wrist. Like you don't want to like this, right? This is kind of an opposite problem of, but making sure the elbow is in line. And again, feeling what we were saying on the left side, this tendon relaxing, becoming balanced with the muscles on the opposite side of your arm. All right. And then finally, this kind of ties into, or finally on this point, this ties into the next error, is just to make sure that you are feeling, not that your fingers are up here on top of the stick, but these middle fingers, again, are going over the frog. They're not up here on the stick, they're going down over this eye of the frog. And that's kind of a common issue with the straight fingers, is that it's kind of, I don't know, maybe you'll be doing something like this, or maybe you're curving your fingers but they're up here, but this is still not quite right. Making sure they're down over the frog. Okay, and then kind of, now that we've already reviewed these middle fingers, another common error is that students really like to kind of lean into their pointer finger on their bow hold. This is called pronation. And sometimes their finger will just start getting higher and higher up the stick of the bow because they're just trying to push into the string. So again, this is not something that you're going to be naturally doing with your body, just like a position that you're holding. So and look how this unbalances the knuckles, right? Like just, it's not going well. So just make sure you pull it down. You want everything to be like lower than this leather part of the bow. And make sure that also your pinky is not straight. If your pinky is straight, it's going to kind of push the weight of your hand, your knuckles bending. Do you see how my knuckles are at an angle, bending towards the pointer finger into the stick? You want your knuckles, curve your pinky, knuckles will end up being curved and aligned with the stick of the bow. And then that fixes the problem with the pointer finger, as long as you, again, pull it down here over the leather. Okay? And then just another cute little relationship back to what we were talking about, this, our bow hand being like a bunny, is just realizing that this is a rabbit, and then floppy ears down, which is what our bow hold is a bunny, right? That's the difference between a rabbit and a bunny. So if you're going like straight fingers like this, I don't know, you're kind of, it's at a different position slightly, but you're kind of being more of a rabbit. So make sure that you're a bunny in your bow hold. All right. We're so close. It's going to be 15 minutes. The final issue that many students have is that they play with their bow at many different angles. So we didn't really talk much about the position of the bow, but with your bow hold, right, you want to put your bow at the most ideal sounding point, which for most instruments is at this point just slightly closer to the bridge than it is to the fingerboard. Somewhere, they say in general halfway is good, but usually it's just a little bit closer. And this is something you'll have to determine on your own instrument, where you get the most clear sound from your instrument. And even if you're positioned at this ideal spot, you might see bows that are going like this, and what happens when they're angled one way or the other, rather than straight and parallel to the bridge, is that when you pull, the bow travels somewhere that you don't want it to. Especially this one, right? This is called going over the fingerboard, when the bow kind of moves and slides across the strings like this. So to maintain that same contact point where we wanted our bow to be for the ideal sound, it needs to be straight. So the basic way to fix this, if your bow is curving inwards towards your head at the tip, you see, usually this is caused by having an elbow that's too far in front or forward of your body. Right, I'm very exaggerating, it might be just something like this. And the basic idea would be to just move your elbow back to a more natural position until you can find, looking directly into a mirror or a camera like this, that, okay, now my bow is parallel to the bridge. And then you can just learn that that's the ideal point from which, if you're going to the upper half of the bow, you'll be needing to open from your elbow from there. Okay, and then going up to the frog, this is a more advanced concept, but going to the frog, you will usually have to move your elbow just up in a little bit because there's no more elbow closure to happen at that point without it being unnatural. So you just lift your elbow a little. And then at this point, that's my ideal point, so I'm going to open my elbow from this point. And then lift elbow for that last few inches to the frog for me. Okay, and then this is the final one. Pointing away from your body would mean the opposite, right? It means your elbow is too far back. It's maybe too aligned with your side of your body, or it's kind of farther back. It's not this far back because that would be kind of impossible, but right, so that just means you just need to bring your elbow forward a little bit. Maybe instead of being aligned with like back here, maybe just a little bit more like on your hip angle probably is more likely. So again, you can look for that same thing, pushing your elbow forward until the bow is parallel. All right, thank you so much. That is your basic left hand, right hand, bow, string hand, technique, intro video. Thank you. Bye.